Jean and I have come to talk to you about our genetic history and if we had a child, what could affect it?
And what kind of things are you looking for?
Well, we don't want some stupid albinism child that's super white, because we can't afford sunscreen.
Well, Mr. Genie, Mr. Dr. Genie, you see, a friend of ours has had an albino child, and we didn't really want an albino child, and we were going to have a child. So we were wondering what kind of precautions we should take.
Well, 1 in every 17,000 people in the United States are born with a form of albinism, so the chance of having a child with albinism is unlikely if you have not already had an albino child.
Well, how would we find out if we had an albino child?
Well, if you had an albino child, it would be easy to tell. Albinism causes people to have reduced amounts of melanin, resulting in lack of pigment. There are 3 types of albinism. Type 1 albinos have white hair, white skin, and eyes that can be translucent, white, green, or hazel. Type 2 albinos have skin and hair that is lighter than that of their parents, but not as light as Type 1 albinos. They can even have light brown hair and skin if they have dark-skinned parents. Type 3 albinos have lightened eyes. Their hair varies from silvery white to light blonde, and they have lighter skin than their parents. All albino people have vision problems.
Wait, honey, I forgot. We don't have to worry about albinism. See, the last genetic counselor I fired had said that skin color comes from a combination of genes from the parents. So, that means if we're both moderately white people, we can't have a super white child. Man, I'm a genius.
That would normally be true, but the gene for albinism is an epistatic gene. That means that if the child receives the albinism gene from its parents, the albinism gene overrules the other skin genes. An albino person could have the genes to be dark-skinned, but if they have albinism, they cannot express those genes.
Well,
Honey, the doctor said that the chances of having an albino child are highly unlikely. Right, doctor?
Well, for a child to be albino, both parents need to have the autosomal recessive gene for albinism and pass it on to their child. Since the disease is recessive, it requires a person to have 2 alleles for albinism. If the child has only 1 allele for albinism, they are a carrier and can pass it on to their children, but they do not have the condition. It is only if the person has 2 alleles that they have reduced melanin production. Here is a picture of a Punnett square to help show what I mean.
well, you know what? That's just silly, honey. That's like the big bully genes picking on the little kids and beating them up.
Honey, what happened in high school was a year ago. You don't have to remember that now. No one's gonna come in recess and beat you up and take your lunch money anymore. An albino is not that bad. You understand? We could go with my first name option and name it Albinene, but besides the point, you shouldn't get worked up about this stuff.
Well, you know what? It's not fair! And by the way, doctor, can albinism be found in any other ethnicities?
Of course, albinism can be found in any ethnicity.
How can we test it for albinism carriers?
Well, you cannot be tested for being a carrier unless you have given birth to an albino child already. If you have, we can test you using a method called amniocentesis. This is when we take a look at some of the fluids inside your uterus to see if there is the recessive albinism gene coming from both parents, or if it is a much more rare X chromosome related gene.
My uterus?
Well, I hope not, honey. Now, doctor, could you tell us a bit about the history of the disease?
Well, the term albino was first created in the 17th century, but albinism has existed for all of recorded human history.
Well, if we do happen to get an albino child, how can we treat it?
Well, there is no way to change the unusual pigmented skin these days, but optical surgery can be performed to help the poor eye vision. Even with the surgery, though, albinos can have a difficult time seeing, and most will need glasses or contacts.
You know what? We're done here. I've learned enough about albinism today. Thank you for your time.
Well, I guess we gotta go then. And I've dated a a lot of guys in my history. And you seem like a nice guy, so maybe I'll add you to the list sometime. I'll get you my number. Call me.